Alrighty, guys, I wanted to make this segment because, frankly, this topic has been on my mind for quite a while now, and I decided I just wanted to talk about it because it's come up in conversation with other people over the past few months as the MCU's Phase 5 is closed out, and as we have a chance to look back on what has been a tumultuous time in the MCU. I don't think that that's in any doubt, even for those of us like myself, who really do enjoy a lot of what the MCU has produced in the past. Now, we've done our very extensive Phase 4 rewatch series. That was about a couple years ago at this point. So if you want to check out pretty much my most up-to-date thoughts, I know it's been about a year, but really I don't think my thoughts have changed too drastically on any of those projects. You can go check out any single one of those videos. We did it on every single movie, every single show, every single special presentation, as well as rankings, tier lists, and or I don't think tier lists this time, but rankings for sure, and then a couple extra video essays. And I think I want to focus in on those because in those video essays, I decided to rewrite Phase 4, and I did a separate segment, or a separate video on what I think the biggest problems of Phase 4 are. But today, I wanted to think about, I have a thought, I have a theory, I have a thesis, and it's probably the title of this segment, and it is this. I think that Phase 4 is good, but I think that there are very valid reasons as to why we remember it as being bad. And when I say that, I want to be very clear, because I know that immediately people are going to jump to the comments and say, if they see the title of Phase 4 is good, they're going to be like, no, I hate Phase 4. If you genuinely don't like the majority of Phase 4, if you genuinely just don't like it as a whole, I'm not here to convince you otherwise. That's not what this segment is about. So please hear me when I say that. That is not what this segment is about. I've done plenty of segments on this podcast. I've done plenty of videos on this YouTube channel where I talk about the fact that I think part of what makes this discussion and this community and this engagement so beautiful with the relationship that all of us have to individual movies and shows, what makes it so beautiful is that we come at it from very different perspectives. And I don't think that even though we can have discussions about it and debates, that doesn't negate that we each individually see these projects differently. So that's not what I'm saying. If you don't like Phase 4, I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. I'm just putting out here that my thesis, my thought, is that I do think Phase 4 is good in my eyes, and perhaps maybe for some of you who don't like Phase 4, better than you thought, better than we all collectively think. But I do think there is a reason we collectively don't like Phase 4. Phase 5 is a whole different story, and perhaps someday we'll do a Phase 5 rewatch. I've been teasing that for a while now, and we got to get through our Defenders rewatch. We got to finish up the DCE rewatch at a certain point. So it's a bit away. Probably won't happen for about a year or so, I would imagine. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that eventually. But anyways, Phase 4, I think, is better than we thought. Now, I just want to go through a quick exercise here and talk about, very quickly, just not objectively, because it's my subjective thoughts. That's a little bit ironic. But more so just taking a look back at every project in my eyes and how I felt about them. And I'm not going to give an overarching statement about Phase 4. I'm just going to talk about each individual project, and we can dissect and we can go from there. But I think that this exercise will kind of prove a point in my eyes, at least, and so we'll see how that shapes up. So first of all, WandaVision. I love WandaVision. I think it's amazing. I think WandaVision stacks up there with the best of the best of the best of the MCU. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think, is okay, if not pretty watchable, pretty okay, with some pretty, noticeable flaws in my eyes, but it's okay. Loki Season 1, I think, is an unfinished show, but has all the potential in the world. It has all of the potential in the world, but it is, to me, a very unfinished show. Black Widow, I think, is decent. I think it's fine. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, right up there with any of the better MCU films in the Infinity Saga. Eternals, I think, is good. I actually really quite like Eternals, but we'll get back to that one. Hawkeye, quite enjoyable, in my opinion. Spider-Man, No Way Home, really, really good. Really, really good. Moon Knight, lots and lots of potential. Didn't quite execute on it, especially towards the end, but lots of potential. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's fine. It's all right. It's entertaining. Miss Marvel, really liked it, except for a couple episodes and a couple things that they did towards the end. Thor: Love and Thunder, really don't like it. Thor: Love and Thunder might be... I wrestle with this now with The Incredible Hulk and Thor: Love and Thunder of which one is my least favorite MCU movie, but I think Thor: Love and Thunder is a little bit above The Incredible Hulk for me, but I really don't like the movie. She-Hulk: Attorney at Law, not my cup of tea, not my sense of humor. I think more enjoyable than holistically people think it is. People think, oh, this is the worst thing ever. It has its moments, but definitely not the show for me. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Love it. Really, really love it. And then the two special presentations in there, Guardians of the Galaxy, love it. Werewolf by Night, really like it. So taking a look back in that on that list, on balance, I think what you'll notice is that I quite enjoy most of these projects. I actually think that a lot of these projects are really good. Here's the reason, though. Here's my thought as to why, even though I like a lot of these projects, and in fact, in a heartbeat, I think I could rewatch any single one of them, even Thor: Love and Thunder, through gritted teeth, and She-Hulk: Attorney at Law. Probably the two least favorite projects on this list. Here's why I think we collectively look back on Phase 4 as worse than it perhaps is individually, if that makes sense. And that is consistency and firsts. So let me go through consistency to begin with. And I think that this one's pretty self-explanatory. One of the things about the MCU that made it, at least during the Infinity Saga, so incredible was how consistent it was. And that's not to say that every single project hit. But even the projects that weren't quite as good were still very consistent with one another. You had, for example, I think that the bottom tier of the Infinity Saga are still consistently entertaining and decent films. I would put projects like Captain Marvel, The Incredible Hulk. Actually, I would probably put those on the lower end. Captain Marvel, The Incredible Hulk, for example. But I think that the next level up of your Iron Man 3s, your Age of Ultrons, your Iron Man 2s, your Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2s, even though I kind of like that film. But you know what I mean? The projects that are on the next level up, your Thor: The Dark Worlds, I still think are consistent with the MCU. And I think that they're okay. They're not that bad, right? And I think that actually a lot of the films in Phase 4 and shows are on par with some of those projects. For example, I would put Doctor Strange and in the Multiverse of Madness on par with maybe an Iron Man 2 or even an Age of Ultron. Just entertaining. Iron Man 3 even. Entertaining film, right? Not too bad. Entertaining film. And had a lot of fun with it. And still do. But the problem is that Phase 4 was just wildly inconsistent. And I think that individually, that was a problem with different projects. I think Doctor Strange 2 was kind of all over the place, but still entertaining. I think that Thor: Love and Thunder was just wildly, trying to be too comedic. And then individual shows where you could even break it down by episode. I think certain episodes of Loki are great. Certain episodes of Moon Knight are great. Certain episodes of Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk are great. But overall, just each show didn't consistently deliver. You can say what you want, but Thor: The Dark World, is consistent. Captain Marvel is consistent. The Incredible Hulk knows exactly what it wants to be. And I think that is one thing that jarred us out of the state of, oh, wait, the MCU can just be inconsistent. Because one thing that I think jars us out of a state of neutrality, inertia, is when things aren't as we expect them to be, right? In fact, I think that is perhaps sometimes more damaging than a project that we just don't like in particular. And that leads me to the second point, which is firsts. A lot of firsts happened in Phase 4, and I mean negative. For example, and this is a result of COVID, this is a result of the pandemic, but it still happened. Marvel had its first box office bombs. Because Phase 1, I don't think you can call those box office bombs, even though some of those movies didn't make a whole lot of money, objectively speaking, for the MCU standards, because it wasn't even the MCU as we know it, right? Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, and Thor, those projects weren't really what we know as the MCU. They were just individual projects that maybe were leading towards something, and probably were at a certain point, but still. So when Black Widow or Shang-Chi or Eternals didn't make a ton of money, people went, oh, I didn't know that could happen. And one does wonder about what would happen if those projects came out right after Far From Home, but we'll never know. And then from there, we had hits like the $2 billion Spider-Man No Way Home, the almost $1 billion Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and the almost $1 billion Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But since then, it's become more common that, hey, well, maybe MCU films don't have to make a lot of money because that's just not what happens. That was a first. Another first, a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. I genuinely think that even though Rotten Tomatoes is not a be-all, end-all for how we should view movies as audience members, it shouldn't be, it can't be, it really isn't. It is important, and perception is very important. And if a film has a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, all of a sudden, boom, people think, uh-oh, what is this? The MCU before Phase 4. I think the lowest score was in the high 60s, if not low 70s. And most projects were hovering between 80 and 98% with Black Panther, I think. And honestly, I think about half the movies were in the 90s. It was, like I said, consistency. And Black Widow, to be fair, was up there. Shang-Chi was definitely up there. And then Eternals. Eternals was the first rotten film in the MCU. And since then, we've had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and we've had Captain America: Brave New World. So my point here is that I do think Phase 4 is much better than we remember it being. But I think the perception with which we look back on it, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying it is what it is, in my opinion. And you'll let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with me. But I think the perception that, oh, the MCU sucked and the MCU is in such a downturn and whatnot, which I get. People tell me this all the time. Doesn't Marvel suck now? And why do you still watch it? I get it. I totally get it. I get it that some people who don't follow every single show and every single movie watched, I don't know, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and they were like, oh, what is this? I get it. Totally get it. I think on balance, though, Marvel did not take as big of a dip in quality as they, as people remember them taking. And obviously, quantity is perhaps the third unsaid reason here as well, that they just put out too much too fast. And that's obviously a whole separate thing that we talked about many, many times with Bob Chapek and Bob Iger and whatnot, with the CEOs of Disney. It's a whole thing. So that's also there. I think, though, that part of the reason is because, oh yeah, Marvel movies stopped making money, and Marvel movies, rotten scores. If you just look objectively, most of the films in Phase 4 have decent Rotten Tomato scores and made lots and lots and lots of money. Now, Phase 5, like I said, Phase 5, I think because of what happened in Phase 4, the rose-tinted glasses are gone. And I'm not saying that Phase 5's projects are not good, or are good, but we're just deluding ourselves. I'm not saying that at all. I don't like, not a decent bit, but certain parts of Phase 5 I don't love. And that's fine. It is what it is. But I think that because of what happened in Phase 4 and the perception that started to come out of Marvel is vulnerable. Marvel is not invincible. All of a sudden, things changed. That's my thesis. That's my thought. I think that if you take a look back at Phase 4, you'll find that you'd actually quite enjoy a decent bit of the projects once you take a look back at them again. That's my pitch. That's my thought. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this? I just wanted to talk about this because I think it's interesting, and just the way that we look back in hindsight and try to parse things through, always interesting to me. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below.